Okay, so just a follow up on my experience with the cold night at Low Gap Shelter, where I decided to cut my section hike a few days short, just because there was going to be at least another night at that temperature, and then one that was going to go down a few days later into the teens, which means single digits up there. So things to remember that every 1,000 feet of elevation gain is 3 degrees colder. So when you see a town forecast, you're looking at 10, potentially up to 10 or more degrees difference in the mountains at your shelter. Your sleeping bags are survival rated, not comfort rated. So, my 24-degree bag, which does great in the shoulder season when it gets down to, 40s potentially, when in 24 degrees or thereabouts, a few degrees within that range, is not going to be comfortable. I didn't bring a liner. That might have made a difference because I tend to sleep on my back, and then this side, and my back again, and then this side. The only mattress that I can sleep on my back most of the night on is my brand new memory foam mattress, and I love that thing. But an air pad, even the two that I brought, an inflatable and a foam, they weren't so much the problem. It's because when I turn on my side, my body's not touching the pad's warmth. Only this part is, and I could feel the cold air against here. If I had a liner, that could have added the extra few degrees that I needed to be more comfortable and protected my back a little bit more when I was on my side. So these are just things I kind of realized at the time and didn't really mention as much in my video, other than that I was uncomfortable and I kept putting more layers on. I wrapped my raincoat around my legs. I did have to get up to pee twice in the middle of the night, which is unusual, but I had some hot soup, so probably just, so that didn't help, although I did see beautiful clear stars, a sky of stars, which was really nice. But I don't think that helped me build up my warmth over the night. I usually don't get out. I usually plan my water consumption. I'd rather be a little dry overnight than have to get up when it's super cold to pee. And I did that twice. So what else? So here's what I want to do is I want to get a better bag. My last night before I left and I stayed at the airport, I stayed with the guy who, he's a Georgia trail maintainer, and he showed me he has a bag. It's a Western Mountaineering. The material looks a little shinier than your typical down bag. I'm not sure what the material is or if it's just a DWR treatment that makes it look that way. But it's super light and accurately temperature rated. So a 0 degree bag really will keep you comfortable to zero, as far as I've been told and read, as well as him reinforcing that. Those things are, I don't know, $800 if you get it on sale. Worth it if you're gonna camp in those temperatures regularly. I didn't think it got as cold down there in the mountains in Georgia as it got up here. I just didn't. I figured it would be warmer, and it was the first few days with the rain. I've gone out a few nights intentionally, one for work and one intentionally, in those temperatures, and had every single thing on, and it was pretty uncomfortable too. So I didn't really want to do it anymore. For this, I would have, if I had the money and I could get one quickly, I would have done that. But this was a section hike to begin with. I was 30 miles or so short of my original goal. I did 54 miles of really tough, beautiful trail. Really pushed my limits. I did my longest day at just about 12 miles. And that was not an easy day. That was over 3,000 feet of ascent and descent. Big Cedar Mountain, Ramrock Mountain. There was a lot of stuff in there. Going up out of Hog Pen was a kick in the butt. So that was a personal best. I burned almost 18,000 calories according to my app. Definitely lost a couple pounds. So, you know, do I want to buy an $800 to $1,000 bag just so I can do more winter nights? If it meant that I wouldn't necessarily have to leave early if I encountered that, sure. But do I really plan around those kinds of temperatures? I don't really like sleeping in that. I don't mind being out in it all day and hiking in it all day. That's fine. It keeps you moving. But when those really, really cold nights, like the older I get, I'm finding my body is just not as tolerant of the cold. I grew up skiing and snowboarding since I was 3. I've been out in the cold a ton. I was born at the end of January. Definitely a winter baby, but you know, I'm a few years south of 50, and I definitely feel that difference. So I don't know. If I have the money, I'll get a bag like that. But I'm really happy with what I did. I'm not, yeah, I know I made the right choice. Unfortunately, you may have heard there's a hiker who's missing that went up that day before that, the really cold night when we were at Neal's Gap, and is missing, and assumed hypothermic. It was those conditions. So, you know, better safe than sorry. I met some great people. Did the longest solo hike I've done in my life. Like I said, lots of goals achieved. And I'll go back there and finish those 35 miles when it's a little warmer and I don't need to buy such an expensive bag, and when the big bubble crowd has gone through. And that's about it, but I'm okay. You know, I know when it's time to make these decisions. I know safety is important. That's part of my role in the woods, is to help other people. You know, so I need to be able to recognize those signs as much for them as for myself. So, trail's not going anywhere, and I'll be back, Georgia. Cheers. Okay, in case I did say, well, you probably figured it out from my blog and from the video and everything, but I was, you know, after hanging out by the fire a little bit, getting some coffee in me, you know, everything, and the sun being up, things chilled out, and I hiked out 10 miles, which was a good day, a great last day. I got to hike with Oso and Rock Flipper all day, and we went up to Blue Mountain Shelter, and when I got up there, beautiful place on top of a ridge, 4,000 feet. It definitely also looked like the kind of place, I knew it was high, the kind of place where the wind just come right up in there, or potentially, and it was going to be, you know, 3 degrees warmer than the night before, so I don't think that was the place to stay. Could I have gotten a shuttle into Hiawassee and stayed another night there? Yes, but I would have paid, you know, $50 or so for a round-trip shuttle. I would have paid at least $100 for a room, unless there's a hostel, maybe it was less, I don't know. I wasn't planning on doing that night. But then the next shelter, the next night, was Tray Mountain, which is also high up, and that temperature wasn't looking much warmer, and it was also going to be rainy. So yeah, so definitely wasn't a good idea to keep staying in those shelters. I didn't really want to spend the money on another Nero in town. I mean, that would have been the 3rd out of 5 nights that I was not on the trail, and that's not why I went out there. I went out there, I mean, I wanted to stay at Mountain Crossings. I wanted to do a Nero, you know, a Nero for each resupply, but I was going to be out there for like 10 nights, and those were like 3 that I had set aside for that, and it was starting to lean the other way. I like to stay in the woods. I don't want to spend a lot of money in a hotel, if I want to do that, I'll slack pack day hike, other than those required or desired special nights. So yeah, so I was fine in that morning, but I knew that at those higher elevation shelters, for similar temperatures the next few nights, that was a continuing risk that something could have gone worse. So I removed myself so that there wasn't a continued risk and I wasn't a liability to my friends. You got to make those decisions sometimes, and it's all right. Achieved everything I wanted to, really. Well, except for that I never saw fresh ground. But I don't need to be spoiled that much. Again, I'm out there for, when I'm out on the trail, if I find a jug of water, I think that's awesome. So I don't need all the bacon and eggs and pancakes and all that stuff. I like to just get a bar in me and get moving and then spoil myself in town. But I think what he does is really cool. So it would have been cool to at least experience that, but next time. Okay, I'm really gonna have to edit this together because I should have made an outline before I started. But the last thing I forgot to mention, because I was just talking to a friend about it who's preparing to go down there in a few weeks. I do have a liner, Cocoon one. It could add, I don't know, they say 10, but realistically it's maybe more like 5. That might have been the difference. But I don't like those things. I know they help keep your bag clean and all the dirt off of that, and sweat. But I always get tangled up in them. As you know, I toss and turn. I go this way, this way, this way, this way. Every time I need to get out and pee or whatever, it takes twice as long. I let that much more hot air out of my sleeping bag. In the process, I make more noise and commotion, wake up the person right next to me in the shelter. Maybe I should have chosen to sleep in my tent, and the condensation or the my hot air breath would have helped. But that's also why I don't do quilts, because there's all these potential places where that hot air can get out that you've warmed up. And I know there's some that wrap around and have like a little string, and you can get it mostly airtight, but I find for me, I can even feel in my mummy bag with the, whatever those things are called, the baffles, that, the collars, that air can get in and out easily if I'm not bundled up tight. So I don't think a quilt would work for me. Maybe a summer quilt, like I have a Snug Pack Jungle blanket. Thought about getting the jungle bag, because a lot of times I just have the blanket on top of me when it's hot. But yeah, so the liner I could have brought my like emergency bivy, like I know Happy down the trail used 1 or 2 of those around his bag to sleep on a fire tower in freezing or 0-degree type temperatures. I suppose I could have brought that, and that could have made the difference too. So things to think about, maybe if I'm not gonna go buy an expensive $800 bag, maybe I could just next time carry that emergency bivy in there. Because that definitely would have made me comfortable. And you make these decisions about weight. I definitely brought a lot of extra things. I brought spikes, I brought gloves, I brought mitts, I brought a second sleeping pad, an extra beanie, even though I had multiple hoods and hats. I brought everything I thought I needed to be warm in Georgia, but I was off by about, 10 degrees. All right, I think that's everything. Maybe I'll just jam these together, since it would be a lot more work to edit them, and you can obviously tell I just remembered each thing and added it. So, all right, thanks for listening.